Thank you for joining us on another episode of Light and Darkness, where we're looking at 7 parables of Jesus on the kingdom of heaven. And we're on the 3rd episode today, based on Matthew 13:24-30, which is the parable of weeds among good plants. Matthew 13:24-30 reads this: Another parable he put forth to them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares, which are weeds, among the wheat and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, An enemy has done this. The servants said to him, Do you want us then to go up and gather them up? But he said, No, lest while you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and at the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, First, gather together the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. And there are a few beautiful illustrations here in this parable to understand a little more on the kingdom of heaven. The first is in the beginning, in verse 24, where he says, The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. So they're talking about this farmer who chose to sow a type of seed, but it says a good seed. It doesn't say an average seed. It doesn't say a cheap seed. It doesn't say just a normal seed. It doesn't say a seed. It doesn't say a bad seed. It says a good seed. And the great thing about that, it illustrates the wisdom of the farmer who is deciding what type of a seed. So he doesn't just choose any seed to sow, but he's choosing a good seed to sow in his land. And so so that's the first thing. But then it says, of course, then the enemy came. And what does the enemy do? Well, the job description of the enemy is to come and kill, steal, and destroy. And it's saying that the enemy came and did what? Planted weeds among the good seed. And then the servants of the master said, they asked, well, why? Why are we seeing weeds among this, crop? Why are we seeing weeds among the wheat? Didn't you, why in the world would you consider, planting weeds with your wheat? We don't understand what's going on. And then the master, with discernment, he said immediately, he understood. He said, aha, I understand what happened. He didn't ask, he didn't question, he didn't go and investigate. Right away, he said, this has come from the enemy. He said, an enemy has done this, plain and simple. And so, of course, the servants of the master were probably confused, were probably shaky, were probably maybe fearful. Well, what do you mean we have an enemy? Why do we have an enemy? Why would the enemy want to come and destroy? But the master and the farmer and the one who understands the difference between the wheat and the weed spoke very plainly and very out of an understanding point of view. And this farmer or this master said, no, let them grow together. Because if you don't let them grow together, you might go and cut some of the wheat that I so value. You might go and destroy the seed that I myself, I want to see grow and flourish and be harvested. So he's saying, give it some time. Let them both grow together. Be patient. Let them both grow together. Trust me. Let them both grow together. And in time, when the time has come, in the time of harvest, when the time is ready, I know you don't see it now. I know you don't understand it now, but you are the servant and I am the master, he's saying. So he said, let both grow together until when? Until the harvest. And who decides the harvest? The servants? No. The one who decides the harvest is the master, is the farmer, is the one who hired the servants. So the expert So he's saying, let both grow together until the harvest. And at the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, go and bind up the weeds in bundles and throw them to be burned, because there will come a day where they will be burned. And then gather the wheat and put the wheat into my barn. So the illustration here is to have trust in the master, have trust in the farmer, have trust in the one with the spirit of discernment, the one who he himself went out, bought the seed. And of course, before buying seed, you have to see if the seed is good seed or bad seed, worthy seed or unworthy seed. But this farmer, he saw that it was good seed. And after he saw that it was good seed, he said, let me plant this, because this is worthy of being planted. And of course, that farmer understood that enemies would come. Of course, that farmer would understood that weeds would soon be planted among the wheat, because of his surrounding enemies. And that's what Jesus is saying, is that enemies, they come, enemies, they go. But there will come a day when there will be a distinguishing point where Jesus will differentiate the weeds from the wheat. And those who stand on this side, which are considered the wheat, will go into the barn house. And those on the left side, which are considered the weeds, will be, well, number one, to know that something is a weed. You will be exposed as a weed, yeah? And then second of all, it says that that weed will, it doesn't say that it's going to be put in the barn house. He's saying that that weed, or those weeds, will be burned. And of course, the final thing is, within the parable, he's saying that while men slept, his enemy came. And then when the servants of the owner came in, he said, sir, didn't you sow good seed? How does it have then weeds? He said, an enemy has done this. So Jesus is saying that an enemy. He doesn't classify it as enemies, multiple enemies, because he's saying either you're with me or you're against me. There is no lukewarm. You're not in between. You're either for me or against me. And so he classifies the enemies, no matter how many numerous enemies of God there are, he's classifying them under one umbrella. And these enemies will be burned. These enemies on the time of harvest will be separated from the wheat and will be burned and will be gone, extinguished. So that is a great sign of hope for those whom are considered wheat, those whom are surrounded by enemies, those who are servants of the master, the ultimate master, who say, well, have all these questions. Well, sometimes trust in the master, and sometimes obedience and surrender and faith in our master is really all it takes, and really all we need until the harvest comes. And once the harvest comes, the good news comes. And then once the harvest comes, all will be well. And once the harvest comes, of course, the wheat will be separated from the weeds. Thank you for joining us here on Light and Darkness.